When I started this project, Nickelback was still cool. The overall plan for the truck is to have something performance-minded and comfort. And not luxury, but just a comfortable, enjoyable drive. And to me, that means GT. So I've kind of started calling it the 36 GT.
I don't like it!
We don't like it!
I really don't like it!
The 1936 Chevy half-ton pickup is very unique in that it's a mid-year model revision. They started the year with what was called a high cab, which was similar to 34 and 35. It had a wooden structure with the sheet metal nailed and screwed to that structure. Halfway through the year, they released a low cab, which was all steel and significantly shorter. The other thing that's unique about 1936 Chevrolet pickups is that the sheet metal at the front and the front fenders were 1 year only. And then in 1937, they revised the whole thing. So it's a 1 year, 2 cab, broken old truck. My particular truck is a high cab with the wood structure. When I started working on it, one of the first things I wanted to do was replace the wood with steel 1x1 square tubing. I worked on that, revised it, worked on that, revised it, worked on that, revised it, because the truck had been hit on the passenger front and things were shifted. And where every piece was nailed and shifted and tore, and it just really didn't tell you exactly where it needed to go. So that's a very redundant task of putting it together and taking it apart. I decided not to run the original frame. Instead, I bought a 1999 Chevy S10 regular cab short wheelbase. That's 108 inches. My truck is a 112-inch wheelbase, and not only that, the wheels are further forward than what the S10 would be. So I cut the front of the S10 frame off in front of the wheels, then I cut the frame in two and stretched it with 4x6x1/4 inch square steel tubing. Stretch the frame! Modifications to the S10 frame, besides the stretch, include the rears dropped with leaf springs, the front was dropped with drop spindles and coils, and I also took out the original S10 steering, threw that garbage in the trash, and I got a Mustang 2 rack and pinion power setup from Speedway, and then I honed out the S10 drop spindles that I had and to accept the Mustang tie rod ends, and so now I have a rack and pinion setup. I also put upper and lower tubular A-arms on the S10, as well as taller ball joints, which help improve handling and suspension geometry. I then cut out some relief to mount a 350 small block Gen 1 and a brand new 700 R4 from Summit. The transmission's rated to about 400 foot-pounds of torque, and my plan is to eventually have a small block right around that power range. I bought a Gen 1 from a mid-70s Suburban, and I've been using that for mock-up. It ran, but it is not the motor I'm planning to use by any means. I have 17x8 American Racing Torque Thrust 2 with the gray center. I'm running Z-rated tires. They're performance tires, but they do have some rain handling characteristics to them. So far I've managed to modify the frame, stretch it, lower it to improve the handling, improve the steering. I'm improving the brakes. For the engine's exhaust, I'm running their shorty headers for an S10 V8 conversion, but they're ceramic coated, and the main thing I wanted is they run really tight and then down behind the rear of the block, which I needed for just room. But I also allow the steering linkage to go down in between the header tubes on the driver's side. And I've gotten that all connected to a Chevrolet tilt column shifted steering column that I shortened a little over 8 inches in order to match the distance between the dash and the firewall. And from there, I've connected it through Borg-Warner universal joints and round 3/4 inch steering stock that's been welded. Well, right now it's been tacked, but it will be fully welded to mate up the Mustang steering with the Chevy steering column, also I can drive and feel like I'm racing even though I won't be. After getting the structure thrown together, I revised it, and I just wasn't very happy with it. And one of the biggest obstacles I had with working on this truck is I pulled it out in 2009. I have been working on it at a location over an hour each way from my home, and with kids and a family and work and everything else, I just didn't get very much time to work on it. I'd have to drag it completely out, set everything up, remember what I was even doing when I was on last over there working on it. Eventually, about halfway through then and now, I decided to bring it over here because I needed to have more consistent work patterns if I was ever going to get it done.
I'm coming home!
One of the things I had previously done was take a Rhodes Racing 10-point roll cage for an S10 and put it inside of it. I tended to do things hastily in the sense of fitment and perfection, and I had more gap around the roll bars than I wanted between the body and interior, and it's such a small cab that I just wasn't happy with it. With that, I have had to do a lot of modifications and redo work because of wreck damage, truck usage, and just not having the real measurements to know where everything is. So when I brought it over here, I cut out the entire roll cage. I cut out where I had connected the old firewall.
Cut the ugly out.
Redo it with just a 4-point roll cage. I welded that to 1/4 inch plates that are about 8 inches or so on the floors, and then those directly connect to the body mounts to the frame, and that adds a lot of stiffness. I tied the roll cage into all of the pillars of the chassis as well as various points of them. So on the B pillar, it's connected at the top, in the middle, and at the bottom, so that it would be a much stronger shell. I plan to run door bars in the doors because right now it's just a shell with skin metal on the outside, and that's just not very good. I'd like to survive the crash that I plan to inevitably have being stupid. And I started building it the way I really wanted it to end up. Stuff close to the pillars, as much interior space as possible, as well as I wanted the firewall to look neat. And what I had designed was just terrible. So I cut just a giant hole in the firewall, put some 18 gauge sheet up there, used the old firewall recess from the original 36 firewall, put that in, and then started building floors.
Come on down for a good deal on floors.
Eventually I'm going to get the whole firewall tied in, but we're still working on that. My goal right now is to get it together, running and driving, so that I know everything works, and then blow it apart and make it pretty. It's always been 2 steps forward and 55 steps back because I'm winging it. I've never built a car before, and this is what I'm trying to do. I've been teaching myself along the way after spending time with people who knew what they were doing. I've taken a class at night on auto body and that kind of stuff, but a lot of the stuff I'm just learning how to do it as I do it. And so I've had to redo quite a bit. It'd probably been cheaper just to hire it done. But so this next part, I wanted to kind of show you what the truck looked like when I pulled it out of the barn. I feel like it's weird to call it a barn find because it was my dad's pickup. He got it in high school, and he had a 331 DeSoto Hemi in it, and it was driving. He had it running and driving, and he'd do burnouts for days, as he would say. But it was 1969. It was 1969! Graduated high school. Vietnam War was an issue. Got parked in the barn, and it never came back out. Fast forward 40 years, and I'm pulling it out in 2009, and the block got cracked because the water wasn't drained out of it. So that block really isn't worth anything now. It's way out of my budget to do the Hemi, so that was never an option. So when I'm cleaning it out and pulling everything out, it looked like it was in good repair. It was mostly there. The wood was very brittle and dry and cracky, but I got over here, I start pulling stuff out of the bed, and unfortunately there was a possum who was not very happy that I evicted him from his current home. And I got everything cleaned out. You obviously had the pack rat minefield of poop and debris and everything else it could possibly haul into a car, and it stunk. But I got it out, I got it cleaned up, and I just started working on it. But I thought you might enjoy seeing these pictures of what it looked like when I originally pulled it out. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel. I would really appreciate it.